Good evening and welcome to another Candid Conversation. We are so happy that you were able to join us for tonight's discussion. Quick PSA before we get started. Please remember to type in your question in either the comment box or in the link found in the description box. After our speaker is done, they will then answer your questions, which will prove to be difficult if there are no questions to answer. So please remember that a conversation requires more than one person, so do your part. With that being said, relax, type in your question, and let's have a conversation.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to part 8 of our Candid Conversations. Once again, I really want to thank you for the way in which you are leaning into these conversations, the way in which you are taking part, the way in which you are sharing, the way in which you are encouraging, the way in which you are challenging. It's been a blessing. It's been a blessing to be in this space with you, and I'll ask you to continue to share, continue to engage, continue to lean in. If you have any questions about what I'm saying tonight, please put them in the comment section, and let's see if we could create a conversation after this presentation. I want to talk about trusting God when things are going bad, because things will go bad. Life doesn't run in a straight line. We do know that. Life is a combination, to quote Frankie Beverly and Mays, joy and pain, sunshine and rain. I heard one person say, if you're not standing in a storm, you're heading into a storm. And if you're not coming into a storm, you're coming from a storm. The point being that storms are always going to catch you. But how do we learn to trust God when things actually go that way? I think it's at that space where you have to really sit down and read the biblical stories. Read the biblical narratives, because they are not made up stories. They're actual stories about actual history. They're actual stories about actual people. That's why the stories are messy. That's why the stories are so troublesome sometimes, because we know that even though we're looking at ancient people, we know that we're looking at ourselves. We're looking at human behavior that repeats itself century after century, millennia after millennia. We're recognized that we're seeing just a cycle. We're seeing the cycle of humanity. We're seeing the same joy. We're seeing the same love. We're seeing the same hatred. We're seeing the same grasping for power. We're seeing the same love and sacrifice. We're seeing the same self-preservation. We're seeing the same other-centeredness. We're seeing it time after time after time repeat itself in the human story. 2 Chronicles chapter 20. In the Old Testament, there's a story about a king named Jehoshaphat. And in this particular story, Jehoshaphat gets the news that they are at war. Not only are they at war, but the enemy is actually inside the borders of Israel. The enemy is coming, and not only is the enemy closer than they thought, the enemy is actually bigger than they first estimated. And verse 3 says, the king was afraid. It is such an intimate look, and it is such an engaging and a transparent look into the humanity of kings and leaders. The king is afraid. He's afraid. And so what does the king do? He calls an assembly. He calls an assembly, and he gathers everybody else to pray with him. He gathers this large gathering of the nation. He gathers them to the temple. And the king, his prayer is recorded. And the beautiful thing about this is the level of transparency and authenticity that is recorded. Because what the king does is the king shows his deep vulnerability. The king shows his deep fear in this space. It was the practice of the nation to call people together in times of crisis, in times of upheaval, in times of loss, in times of celebration. They did it for the process, especially though in times of war and in times of challenge and in times of crisis. They did it not only as a means of that support of the collective and that the prayer of the collective, but they did it also in a way to model to the nation what you do in a time of crisis. You don't allow yourself to be alone in a time of crisis. You don't make yourself an island in a time of crisis. You don't tough it out by yourself in a time of crisis. You gather, you pull together so that where you are not strong, somebody can be strong for you. Where you don't know what to say and you don't know how to think, somebody can think for you. When you don't have the capacity to deal with the situation, somebody could do that for you. It's a really interesting thing that righteousness isn't taught. Righteousness is caught. For young people, it's not the things that we say that they catch on to, that they latch onto. It's the things we do. It's actually the things we do that makes the impression on them. And so the nation was gathered together because they were clear, the kings were clear, that while the kings didn't have all the answers, they knew that collectively faith and power and prayer and encouragement would collectively find that space of answer. Because, leaders aren't supposed to have all the answers, but leaders are supposed to be wise enough to know to pull everybody together so that the answer can be found. That's what a leader should always be wise enough to do. So the king pulls everybody together, and this is what the king does. The king prays experientially. I've said week after week that Christianity is based on the life of a person. And it's based on the life of a person that we still believe to be alive today. On this now 14th day, 15th day of April, we believe that Jesus Christ is alive. And if he is alive, then he continues to speak into the human experience. He continues to navigate himself in the human experience. The blueprint that he laid in his life and in his words and in his teaching and in his character, he continues to insist on that in this space now. We do not believe that we worship a dead philosopher. We believe we worship a living Christ, a living Christ. And so Christianity is a experienced, lived-based reality of faith. It's not based on past ideas. It's based on the teachings of somebody who continues to live, And so if people are going to hear us pray, because the king prays experientially, if people are going to hear who God is, especially when we find ourselves in times of difficulty, let them hear us pray out of the experience of actually knowing him. How do we get to trust God more when things are going bad? Well, number one, do not allow the experience that you're going through to rob you of the relationship that you have. One thing that upheaval does is it creates a level of fear in us, and it creates a level of forgetfulness in us. You know, when you argue with people and you get into that place of rage, you actually forget how important they are to you. You forget how much you actually care for them. You forget how much they care for you. So when your mouth opens and you begin to savage them with your mouth, all of your history, all of your laughter, all of your memories of support, all of the love that you carry for the person is forgotten in the heat. What pressure and upheaval does is that it robs us of the memory of relationship. Do not allow the crisis to rob you of your memory of relationship. What does the king do? When the king prays in this prayer, he asks God 4 questions, talking about how can we trust God when things are not going around, things are not going the way things should be going. What the king does is he's afraid, but he doesn't distance himself from God because he's afraid. What he does instead is he pulls God into the center of his fearfulness. That's what he does. He pulls God, the memory of God, the understanding of God, the fact that he actually knows him. And in his prayer, he asks God 4 questions. 4 questions. Number 1, he says, are you not God? That's the first question he asks. Are you not God? Why? Because he is praying into what he knows to be divine reality. I know you are God. I know that you exist. As much as I am in a crisis, I am not going to allow that to rob me of the fact that I know and I remember and I sense that you are God. Second question he asks is, do you not rule? Do you not rule? Why? Because he's praying into divine power. He's praying into divine management, divine control. I know that you rule in this space. So I know that you can see where I'm at. I know that you understand the implications of where we find ourselves right now as a nation. The third question he asks is, do you not deliver? Why? Because he's looking back on past divine faithfulness. He's looking back on past divine faithfulness and saying, I know you've done it before. Won't you do it again? Don't you deliver? And number 4, he says, will you not act? Because he prays into the present need for divine action. How do we trust God when things aren't going well? Well, how do we trust him more? By not allowing the crisis to rob us of our relationship with him. Not allowing the crisis to rob us of the things that we know to be true about him. The fact that he is God, the fact that he does rule, the fact that he does deliver, the fact that he will act. And then this is what the king says. He says, we are helpless and we are clueless, but our eyes are on you. Beautiful. He says, we are helpless and we are clueless, but our eyes are on you. How do we trust God? How do we trust God more when things aren't going well? We double down and we triple down and we quadruple down and we nail down and we rivet down and we drill down on who we know God to be. In this prayer, he reminds God and himself of who God is, who God has been, who God continues to be, and right now, who God needs to be. Who God needs to be. And he stays in that place. He is helpless and he is hopeless, but he never allows himself to become faithless. It's human to feel helpless. It's human to feel hopeless, but it's divine. It's divine and it's spiritually grounded that in the midst of that, we still remain faithful. We do not become faithless. How? We do that one learned from experience at a time. We do that one lived through experience at a time. We do that one learned from mistake at a time. We do that one answered prayer at a time. We do that from day to day, from experience to experience, from journey to journey. I don't know what else to tell you. When people see us and they admit that we don't have all the answers, that sometimes we are powerless and we are clueless, but we are never faithless, that's the type of faith that they can believe. People aren't asking us as believers to be perfect. They're just asking us to remember that they are human. And I believe that what God is asking us to do in those periods in which life isn't going well and difficulty is it's running over us like a tsunami of pain, running over us like a steam truck. What God is asking us to do is take that moment to spiritually breathe and recenter ourselves so that we understand that this crisis will not rob us of the understanding of our relationship. That we will understand that God does rule. We will understand that God does answer prayer, that God is still in control, that God will continue to act, that God will be present, that God is being all of those things in this moment. What is my prayer? My sincere prayer is that you may not only come to the realization that this God is intentionally seeking to make himself known to you, especially when things go bad, but that you will intentionally become aware of that manifestation in your lived experience. This is my prayer. This is my hope. Caught your breath? I'm just catching mine after that. We've got two really great questions that have come up. The first one is from Cheryl Wallace. I don't know if it's a question or it's just a statement. She says, as human beings, at times a person just gets tired of constant struggles. If you love someone, you keep going through it, but after a while, you just walk away or give up. So she said, good word. It's just a struggle at time. And thank you for that affirmation, Cheryl. Thank you for that affirmation. We really do wish that life could be free of struggle. But struggle is just the nature of living. And this is the thing with faith. What people do is they kind of sometimes think about God as almost a crutch to lean on. Like, so you just hobble through, and if the crutch isn't working, just like, well, this isn't helping me walk through life, and you throw the crutch away. But we're not actually talking about an idea. We're actually talking about the presence of a living being. And we're talking about the presence of a living being that lives within our thinking, lives within our hearts, lives outside of our experience, lives inside of our experience. We can see manifest themselves in the lives of others. So we're actually talking about a state of reality. When we talk about faith and we talk about God, we even talk about just the idea that Jesus is still alive. We're talking about a reality of the divine in our human existence, a human existence that only works by five senses, a human existence that doesn't actually want to believe what it can't see. It doesn't want to believe that what isn't tangible. It doesn't want to believe what it just cannot control. And God comes and he moves within that space. And he moves with us so intimately. He moves with us so personally. He moves with us in such an ingrained space of our whole existence that we sense him as more than just a crutch. We sense him as the reality that journeys with us, the reality of the divine that is intimately involved in our life, intimately involved in our everyday, intimately involved in our struggle, intimately involved in our pain, intimately involved in the life and the death of people all around us, those close to us. Faith within that space isn't a crutch. That's what I mean when I say that faith is a lived experience. And so Jesus said, in this world you will have trouble. He said, but be of good cheer, for I have overcome the world. He hasn't overcome what you will experience. He hasn't overcome it in terms of he's doing away with what you experience from day to day. He's overcome what that would normally rob you of. He's overcome the pain of what that would rob you of. He's overcome the power of it to rob you of all sense of hope, all sense of meaning, rob you of all sense of looking forward, and in this space being able to cope. He says, I've overcome that. I've overcome the world and all that it throws at you. And so we navigate with him, knowing that pain isn't gonna cease because I'm a believer. But what pain is gonna do is cease from thinking that it can completely control everything about me, my outlook, the way I respond to life, the way I respond to others, and the way I respond to the intrusion of pain in my space. Now, I've said it that simply because it's that difficult. I've said it that simply because it's that difficult. And I know, and I've experienced, and I continue to experience, that God isn't going to absent me from pain. But what he is going to do is take away the power of that pain to actually destroy who I understand myself to be and who he affirms that I am from day to day, from day to day, from day to day. Another question has come and it says, how can I learn to trust somebody that I can't see when people... how can I learn to trust somebody that I can't see when the people I can see continue to fail me? Well, number one, I would say don't equate the two of them as the same. Don't equate the heart and the love and the character and the personality of the person that you can't see with the people that you can see. Now, sometimes it becomes difficult to do that because the people who may be hurting you may be doing so in the name of that person. Maybe doing so with this person, in the authority, as it were, of this person. Maybe doing so with what they think to be the express backing of this person. But when they do that, I always say, well, if this person is still alive and this person continues to be the person that he says he is, I am the same today, tomorrow, and forever, then what I do is I actually go back and I look at this person. And I said, hold on, was this person as mean as this person? Was this person was this person showed such lack of empathy and lack of transparency as this person? Was this person a hypocrite like this person? And when I understand that, this person in no way is speaking, acting, or even thinking like this person, I begin to separate the two of them and realize that this person is using this person's name as a blanket and as a license to not be this person, but to be themselves, independent of this person. So the first place I would start is by actually separating the both of them. Don't think that everybody who comes in the name of this person is this person. This person said, yeah, it's by their fruits you will know them. You can't grow mangoes on a lemon tree, just like you can't grow bananas, just like you can't grow bananas on an apple tree. Every tree bears the fruit that tree's supposed to bear. So if they say that they're mangoes, but they're bearing lemons, they're bitter, they're acidic, just like I think I've extended, so you understand. How can I trust a God that I can't see, when people that are around me continue to fail me? See how this God that you can't see speaks. See how this God that you can't see moves in the lives of people. See what his record is in the biblical context, and then see what his record continues to be, because he still continues to write his story in the lives of individuals. He still continues to write his love into the lives of individuals. See if there's consistency between the both of them. And when you see that, begin to trust and begin to find people that reflect that, not that. Align yourself around people who reflect that. Be the person who reflects that, so that people can see in you the consistency of somebody that they can trust, and they can invest their life in, and they can invest their time in, and they can invest their trust in. You be that person. You be that person. I want to continue to thank you all and continue to encourage you all to share. Sharing is definitely caring. Share these conversations. Share them. Just copy the links. Copy the links off of YouTube. Copy the links off of Facebook. Share them across your Facebook community. Share them across your friends. Copy the link off of YouTube. Put it in a text. Really great candid conversation from Pastor Bobby Bovell. Really great conversation, candid conversation from Pastor Eddie Hypolite. And then just share it with them as a text. Just pass them out. Pass them out as just spiritual candy. Pass it out as spiritual candy, bringing sweetness and meaning to the lives of people all around you. And I'm being so serious. Continue to share, continue to lean in, continue to encourage us. We feel encouraged and we feel energized by your continued affirmation. Look out for Pastor Bobby Bovell coming in on Sunday evening, and I will see you next week. Blessings.
Thank you for joining us for tonight's Candid Conversation. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, as well as click the bell notifications so that way you are notified every time we go live or post a video. Have any questions, comments, thoughts? Be sure to click the link found in the description box and let us know what's good. And as always, ain't no judgment on this side. Also, be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms so that way you stay in the know every time something is happening here at Mount Pisgah. As always, see you next time.